Hello everyone, this is Ketish here. In this video, I'm going to go through question number 5 from the AQA 2022 Physics Paper 1 Higher Tier. This question is on the topic of the atomic structure. Question 5, a student rubbed a plastic rod with a cloth. This rod became negatively charged and the cloth became positively charged. 5.1, explain why the cloth became positively charged. Now, they are referring to static electricity here. Why would the cloth become positively charged? That's mainly due to the transfer of electrons. So if, as it is similar in chemistry, if an atom loses electrons, then it's going to be positively charged. So the atoms in the cloth are losing electrons to the plastic rod. So your answer is electrons are transferred from the cloth to the rod. Electrons are negatively charged, so there is more positive charges than negative charges on the cloth. Now, when you look at different questions, you will find that it's not always that this is happening, meaning that the cloth doesn't always lose electrons. It can be the other way around, depending on the type of plastic rod that you would use. So here's a really simple example. If you use a polythene rod, electrons are transferred from the cloth to the rod. If you use an acetate rod, the reverse actually happens. So in our question, it's actually they're using actually a polythene rod. Figure 6 shows the negatively charged rod on a balance. So you have a weighing scale or a balance, and you've got an insulating material and the negatively charged plastic rod on the top. Figure 7 shows another charged rod being held stationary above the rod on the balance. The rods do not touch each other. Now you can see that the mass initially was 100.25 grams, and when the charged plastic rod was bought, the mass actually increased to 100.35 by 0.1 gram, which means that the rods are actually repelling each other, causing the rod on the balance to be pushed downwards. Explain why the reading on the balance increases. Now, the only reason it's actually increasing is because this plastic rod, the charge on the plastic rod, which is negative, is also pushing the rod below it. So the answer, there is an additional downward force on the balance, increasing the mass reading. Because the rod held is also negatively charged, rods with like charges repel. Like charges repel each other. Repel each other. Question 5.3. The balance has a zero error. The zero error is not important in this experiment. Give a reason why. Now, what is a zero error? Now, a zero error is what this looks like. So if you have a weighing scale and if you haven't got anything on it, and if it simply doesn't read zero, it reads some mass, it could be negative or positive. So in this case, it's actually reading 0.02 grams. So if you were to place something which is 10 grams, it is actually going to read 10.02. So that's your zero error. Give a reason why it's not important in this experiment. Now here, you're only measuring the difference, not the actual mass. So only the change in the reading or the mass is being observed. You're not actually measuring the mass of it. Question 5.4. A negatively charged rod is held near an earth conductor. Explain why a charge jumps between the negatively charged rod and the earth conductor. Now, this is very similar to what happens when lightning strikes. So why does a spark jumps? There is a large potential difference between the two objects. This causes the negatively charged electrons or the charges to move through the air from the rod to the conductor. That brings us to the end of question number 5, and I will see you in question number 6.